Hey, yo, Jelly Truck Driver. How the flock are you? Well, just watching the news, and this is like one of those moments. Happened to catch an article on the TV that the Office of Management and Budget, that's a bureaucracy down here in Washington, D.C. It's it doesn't belong to the Democrats or the Republicans. They just crunch numbers and turn out answers. Came up with this, which nobody on the liberal news media has even come up with or even spoken about. The OBM came up and said in 10 years there's going to be another $10 trillion added to the federal budget. And then in 10 years after that, it'll go to 30 trillion. And 10 years after that, it will be 70 trillion. On top of the 17 trillion we already have. But see, what the OBM and the rest of them don't mention, and I'll put a link to the video down here so you can go check it out, that in fact, with unfunded obligations and mandates, we are currently, in 2014, over $121 trillion already in debt. Now, would you like to add that? Let's see. 70 and 30 is 100 plus 10, 110 trillion on top of the 121 trillion that we're already butt deep in, can't pay off. Something's going to break soon, guys. The old saying I've always had is I never met a politician that didn't like a new tax. Our Congress is out of control. Their spending's out of control. They've been letting it go on. Doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, or Independent. They've been letting it go on for over 40 years now. But I would remind you, before the current occupier of the White House, the last occupier was only $9 trillion in debt. And from then to now, it went to 17 trillion. By the end of Obama's presidency, it's supposed to reach 23 trillion. Please do the math. But as I was thinking about this, because what we are doing is we are encumbering our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren with all this debt, all this obligation to pay off, as our economy has not recovered since 2008 fully. All the good full-time, well-paying jobs have gone overseas. The advent of Obamacare, a lot of employers are cutting their hours back for their employees to get out from underneath the Obamacare thing. But I find it interesting. You see, there's a total disconnect between Washington, D.C., our government, and Wall Street. Nobody ever makes that connection or much less talks about it. Back in 2008, when we had the stock market crash, you remember that? I darn sure did. From 2008 to 2010, I watched all my 401ks. I had two very nice ones turn into 201ks virtually overnight. And I snatched what was left of them in cash. And I ended up living on the proceeds for the next 2 years between that and unemployment just to survive. That's the reason when I hit retirement age, I didn't have any 401ks to retire on. Thank you, Wall Street. But see, this is what happened. The government came in and bailed out all the banks and all the lending institutions and all the real estate markets, all the derivative type people, car manufacturers, you name it, and bailed them out and propped them up till they could get back on their feet. And from back then to now, they've gone from what was it, 9,000, 10,000 on the stock market scale? Now they're up over 17,000, and everybody on Wall Street's going woo, 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 and all the fund managers are making their bonuses and the corporations are getting fat and sassy. What have they done to help the American people? Nothing. They line their wallets. They're totally disconnected from the Joe Sixpack types. That's you and me, and can give damn less about us. But I have heard rumblings that there may be another crash coming up, whether it's a mini crash or another 1929 type crash that's coming because they're overextending themselves. And the Fed just keeps printing paper money that has virtually no value. The money that we have in the Fed today that's out in the economy is not worth the paper that it's printed on. Nobody wants to talk about this too much, especially the liberal media. So I foresee in the coming months and years, America is going to be in a lot of poop. Right now, the American dollar is used as the reserve dollar in the financial industry all around the world. What the financial types don't want to tell you is there's a lot of countries, China, Russia, and a few others, that want to walk away from the American dollar as the reserve dollar for the world currency and get some other currency. Maybe like the Deutsche Mark, because the euro isn't worth a darn thing. But we don't know what will happen there. But if it does happen, you will have a crash in the economy here in the United States. Forget the politics. We're already a third world nation on account of the current occupier of the White House. But the economy is going to go in a toilet. And there's going to be a lot of people here in America literally homeless on the streets. If not martial law is brought out, if not UN troops are brought out, if not the FEMA camps are activated, if not there is a civil war here in America because of the economy. Not to mention the mad bums rush coming over the southern border with illegals, and we're paying for them. But you know what I hear? I don't hear anybody asking the hard questions. I don't see anybody coming up with a plan. Now, I've seen Sean Hannity on TV with his penny plan. Just take every government spending that we have, every policy, every plan, cut 1 penny out of every dollar that's spent there, and he says we can get out of this in a period of time. The IRS is bleeding us dry. It's sitting there with the Obamacare mandate, and now it's getting slapped down by the courts, some of the provisions in it. And that is coming to a point where over the next year or two, you people that went through these state agencies run by your state governments for Obamacare, you're going to watch your premiums shoot through the roof as your medical care diminishes. See, this all is intertied, interlaced. Most people don't get it. It's like a domino effect. You go, and all the rest of them go. But the problem we've got right now is our government is out of control. The people we elect and send to Washington, D.C. are bought and paid for before they ever get there. And once they get there, the only thing they want to do is find a way to raise money to get reelected. Your and my concerns about our economy, about housing, about taxes, or anything else is very low on their list of priorities. It's whose butt they can kiss, what lobbyist will sit there and back them, what PAC group will sit there and put money in their reelection campaign. It's kind of like that old adage in Rome, Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Current administration, current Congress even, is sitting there fiddling while America burns. It's coming, folks. I'm telling you, it's coming. Sure as God made little green apples. But see, I'm just a dumb old truck driver. I don't know nothing. I'm not the sharpest knife in a drawer, the brightest bulb in a package. And most of my videos get hit, 50, 100 times. I got maybe 150 subscribers. But, there are people out there that have thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers. I don't know nothing, man. I'm just a dumb truck driver. But I want you to keep this in the back of your head, because even people like Glenn Beck and Alex Jones, who 15 years ago I thought were crazier than batshit, see a lot of stuff that's been coming down, and now they said it 10, 15 years ago, and it's here, folks. It's really here. The old George Orwell 1984, where the government regulates you from cradle to grave. But the problem is, like Margaret Thatcher said in England all those years ago with Ronald Reagan, the problem with socialism is when you run out of other people's money. Well, what's our American government going to do when it runs out of our money? China is one of the biggest holders of American debt in the world. What if they call it in and say, we want our money, pay it up? We can't. We will go in default. We will go in bankruptcy. We will end up in anarchy. We will end up in war. We will end up having a foreign government with legitimate worldwide court rulings to say, we own this part of America because we paid for it. And you can't pay it back. Therefore, we're repossessing this piece of property, that office building, this section of land, this business we financed. And yet, what do we hear from the liberal media? Nothing. And even the patriotic types, we want to get back to First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment rights, our Constitution, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence. Yeah, we'd like to. Unfortunately, the people that we elect to office, including the occupier of the White House, that's the last thing on their mind. And of course, it's at a point now, it's about 52% of the people in the American population are what I call drones, 47%ers, socialists, communists, idiots, fools, stupid, blind. They run around with their blinders on. As long as Honey Boo Boo's on, or Duck Dynasty's on, or The Voice is on, that's all they care about. They go out and they get their burgers and their fries and everything else. Anybody noticed going grocery shopping lately? How the prices have literally jumped in this last year or two. I went down to the store the other week, get a couple pounds of ground beef. $8 for 2 pounds of ground beef. Back I can remember when it was like, I don't know, $2, $2.50 for 2 pounds of ground beef. And it's going that way with pork, with chicken, with lamb, you name it. The free lunch is over, folks. Our government doesn't realize it and doesn't care. When the whole thing hits the fan, these people that we have elected to office to run our country, to manage our finances, even to these geniuses up on Wall Street that the only thing they care about is them and screw you, they'll just walk away like, not my monkey, not my fault. And you and me, Joe Six-Pack types, are going to get left holding the bag. My attitude is if we get left holding the bag, God help all those elected people from the president's office to Capitol Hill, everywhere else, state capitals, governors, counties, boroughs. If they haven't disarmed us by then, with the Second Amendment and how they're trying to skirt around it, there's going to be a lot of upset Americans toting guns, irregardless of what your state or your county or your city or your federal government says about carrying firearms. And you're liable to see civilian armies of the people, by the people, for the people, standing up, even if we've got to go up against our own military. And we already know the government floated that boat a couple years back, asking generals in the Pentagon if they could get the military to fire on American civilians in a time of riot or disturbance or martial law. And a bunch of the generals that said no are no longer in the Pentagon. They've retired. Look at our local cops. Long gone is the day where you had your cop on the block. You used to walk around with a 38 on his hip at a billy club, or ride around in a police car, wave at you, maybe give you a ride sometimes. The government's doing its best to militarize the police forces across the United States, making them into SWAT teams with MRAPs and everything else. And the mental attitude that's being instilled in the current police forces, they aren't our friends anymore. They are the enemy. How many times have you seen on the internet SWAT teams kicking in front doors 3 a.m. in the morning, sometimes making mistakes and killing people accidentally? But the average thing, like some guy owed $3,000 in back child support, instead of sending a constable out there or a couple of constables, they send a SWAT team kick in the front door. No. Cops are no longer your friends. I defy anybody to say otherwise. You can find it on the internet. You can find it on YouTube. And it's getting worse and worse every day. Obama went and played the race card. People don't like me because I'm black. No, it's because you're socialist. But see, this is how the liberal media spins it, that all white folks don't like blacks. They don't like black people. Let's see. I like West. I like whatever happened to Common Sense. A bunch of others that are on YouTube. Politicians, pundits, people like that. But see, there's been a total disconnect between our government. The Office of Management and Budget is out there waving this red flag saying, yo, man, it's coming. You better do something about it. Wall Street don't care as long as, their fund managers and people are making their money. They go home every night fat, dumb, and sassy and making 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 times more than the average American does. You noticed in the last 4 to 8 years, the median average income used to be around $70,000. It's now down to about $40,000, and that's full-time work. You hear that great sucking sound, especially on the West Coast? American employers sending their jobs overseas. Go into a store. Try and find something that's truly made in America. I mean, from the guts to the get-go to the finished product. You can't hardly do it no more. And yet I see companies like Walmart. Well, we've got this Tide plant in Tennessee that we buy from. Go check out their clothing, their toys, their electronics, and everything else. India, Japan, China, the Philippines. Oh, well, it's cheaper. You know what? If that be the case, to get American industry back on its feet, I wouldn't mind paying 10% more for a TV made in America rather than a one that's made in some sweatshop in China. Think on it. Or you buying apples at the store. And in winter, most of the growers are not in America. They're in South America. They're in Mexico. They're in Central America. And their rules and regulations on growing safe food are a whole lot different than ours. Again, I'm asking you, think on it. But herein lies the problem, folks. There is a total disconnect between our government and Wall Street, our federal debt, and what was it George Carlin said? The American dream, you and I ain't in it. We're not part of it. Before he died in 2008, he came out and said what needed to be said. Matter of fact, I'll put a link to his video right here underneath the other one so that you can go check it out. Anyhow, that's all I got to say for now. If you're not woke up yet, if you're not concerned yet, the best thing I can say is you'll get what you deserve. But you know what? There's a bunch of us out here, about 48% of the American population, that thinks this whole deal totally sucks. And we're fighting like mad to get it corrected. And the other 52% is often la la land. Truck driver's opinion, you understand. Later.